Greetings and welcome aboard Zack Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. Now, most carousels just go round and round without getting anywhere, but on this one, we'll be talking theme parks. And now, here's your host, Zack Back. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode, which is the episode on Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Now, I'm so excited to be talking about this park because, honestly, I didn't know a lot about Busch Gardens going forward into this episode. I use this as an opportunity to learn more about the park because I find that these parks are interesting. They have a lot of history tied to them, and they exist today, but no one really talks about where it started. Like, everyone assumes and knows that Busch Gardens started from Anheuser-Busch and that they started a theme park. But, why did they start a theme park? And where did it begin? What was the first parts? What did they originally intend for these parks? So I'm excited to really talk about that. Also, this episode debuts a new microphone for the podcast. I'm so excited. Hopefully this sounds at least a little bit better for your listening experience. I'm still trying to tweak some of the new effects on this mic, so please be patient with me as I make some edits to how I record the podcast and kind of what it sounds like as I continue to work through these audio changes. So hopefully it's a little bit clearer in your car or wherever you listen to your podcasts so that it sounds a little bit better. I mean, it sounds better so far, so hopefully it does sound great. Without further ado, let's really get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, which is the history. Here, coming up, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Busch Gardens Tampa Bay is a world-class theme park destination with shops, restaurants, and an array of attractions well known across the industry. The history of this park began in 1957 when Anheuser-Busch announced it would build a new brewery in Tampa after purchasing a 160-acre tract of land on the former Henderson Airport site. In an effort to promote marketing in the new location, the company started on March 31, 1959, by opening an admission-free hospitality facility for the Tampa Anheuser-Busch Brewery on the grounds of the manufacturing plant. Visitors could watch bird shows and animal acts in a tropical setting, and before leaving the grounds entered a beer garden featuring the Busch beer to drink. Hundreds of exotic birds filled the fully interactive bird gardens, all for free admission. This was not the first time Busch had built something like this, as they had attempted an earlier design in Pasadena, California in 1905. This first park was a botanical garden, rather than an amusement park like the subsequent versions. As the company turned to this new venture in Tampa, they had big plans on what would become far more than a factory attraction. Originally, upon arriving at the facility, guests could take a tour of the brewery and visit botanical gardens, the bird gardens, and enjoy complimentary Busch beer in the hospitality house. Guests could also explore an area called the Dwarf Village, which was a fairy tale themed garden with small dioramas. By the end of opening day, some 1,600 guests had visited the location, with nearly 200,000 guests visiting by the end of October of that opening year. Updates came by the way of the world's longest outdoor escalator, coined the Stairway to the Stars, in 1961, which carried guests to the upper level of the brewery, where the tour began. Of the original 160 acres, over 100 acres were set aside as a preserve for the company's retired Clydesdale horses and about 100 other animals, including deer, buffalo, zebras, ostriches, kangaroos, Sicilian donkeys, Black Angus cattle, mouflon goats, and outed sheep. A newspaper article in March of 1959 cataloged some of the animals already on site in pastures, including English stag, 3 fallow deer, 33 head of Black Angus cattle, 2 American buffalo, and 2 Clydesdale horses. In early 1961, the park received its first 2 reticulated giraffes, Raggedy Ann and Andy, from the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. Little Britches, a Maasai giraffe from the Cleveland Zoological Gardens, was the next to arrive. Jimmy, a Nubian reticulated giraffe, was the third to arrive in the park. He was the last to be born at the Ringling Brothers headquarters in May of 1956 and was purchased by Busch Gardens from Clyde Betty, a circus owner based in Hollywood, Florida. On May 25, 1962, the park announced a $3.5 to $4 million expansion program to include an authentic American Plains area located north of the brewery, roughly where present-day Stanleyville and Pantopia are located, and an African veldt section located east and northeast of the facility. Animals on display in the new African veldt were expected to include elephant, zebra, giraffe, black buck antelope, eland, camel, mouflon sheep, ostrich, gnu, outed sheep, and 5 monkey species. A miniature train on a 2-mile route around the habitats was also planned. The goal was to make the area look authentic, with plans for a 2.5-acre lake, 2 watering holes, and a 3/4-mile-long river, in addition to other landscape features. An expansion plan illustration was shared with the announcement. It showed the overall layout for the expansion, including several species and waterways planned for the African-themed section. It also shows the planned route for the train and 2 stations. Most interesting is the inclusion of a proposed monorail route. Although the attraction was not part of the announcement and was not labeled in concept illustration, a boat landing is also marked on the northern end of the African veldt, though articles covering the announcement did not mention this feature. Work was initially expected to be completed by the end of 1962. However, the project ran into several delays. According to Anheuser-Busch president August A. Busch Jr., additional research was needed to ensure the new areas were authentic. Permits to import animals to Florida were also taking longer than expected. Busch was in talks with state officials on some of the issues the project was facing and discussing the possibility of Busch Gardens becoming a government-recognized zoological facility. In 1964, the park opened the Old Swiss House, patterned after the themed Old Swiss House in Lucerne, Switzerland, but overlooking giraffes and gazelles gazing on the Serengeti Plain. A late 1960s brochure listed the restaurant as Old Swiss House, with food and beverages served in the dining room, or a lighter fare available at Rathskeller, both featuring views of wild animal kingdom from enclosed terraces. By 1966, the park opened the monorail, known as the Sky Rail. This small suspended system operated boxy trains that used 2 propane-fired, air-cooled aluminum Corvair engines per train to produce the AC power necessary for the electric motors. By the end of the 60s, the Boca Raton News calls Busch Gardens the largest tourist attraction in Florida. Annual attendance is now reported at over 3 million, with a peak daily attendance of 42,000, and admission is still free. The park also announces a $900,000 expansion to add Boma and Nocturnal Mountain, which was comprised of a man-made mountain housing nocturnal creatures and forested area where other animals could be seen at close range from foot trails. 1970 marked the year when free admission ends as the park begins charging $1.25 for adults and 50 cents for children 6 to 12 to enter. Children 5 and under remained free. Along with the new general admission charge, parking becomes free again. As the years went on after this, admission slowly rose to $4.25 and beyond per adult by 1974. A 1974 map of the park named the area formerly named Boma African Veldt, which also included the monorail station, Veldt Theater, Old Swiss House, and Monorail Boutique gift shop. The park by that point was recognized as a survival center for many endangered species and was sanctioned by the USDA. The Transveldt Railway provided tours of the outer veldt, while the monorail safari provided tours of the inner veldt. Views of the northern end of the area could be had from the 3-story treetop stop on the railway. As of early 1976, it was estimated there were around 800 animals representing nearly 100 different species who called the veldt home. This year also saw Python, the park's first roller coaster, officially opening to guests in the Stanleyville section of the park. Python was manufactured by Aero Development and was one of the first steel coasters to take riders upside down along its course. The corkscrew coaster was designed by Ron Toomer, who would also go to design 3 of the roller coasters at Busch Gardens Tampa's sister park in Williamsburg, Virginia: Loch Ness Monster, Big Bad Wolf, and Drachenfire. Toomer would later become president of Aerodynamics, a successful company to Aero Development. By the next year, the Congo area officially opens, including new Claw Island, African Queen boat ride, and Swinging Vines attractions, along with Python and Monstrous Mamba that opened in the previous year. Billed as a quarter-mile riverboat safari through the wilderness bulging with live crocodiles, rhinos, hippos, and other big game, the African Queen was Busch Gardens' answer to the Jungle Cruise at Disney's Magic Kingdom. The 11-minute ride took guests past several island habitats with real animals instead of fake ones, and through a native African fishing village on stilts. The boat's captain was accompanied by a live parrot perched behind him. On the official opening day, July 26, 1977, the ride was in operation but wasn't quite finished. The press release for the attraction described a lagoon surrounded by waterfalls that pour thousands of gallons of water into the channel. But the pumps for the waterfalls were several weeks away from being delivered and installed. The queue reached at least 60 minutes on that day, but was expected to be shorter in the coming weeks as an additional boats were delivered to the park and the fleet of 10 vessels would be complete. By 1980, the park continued its path to explosive growth as a full-fledged theme park destination, renaming the park to the Dark Continent Busch Gardens. Timbuktu officially opens to guests with new rides, the Fest House, a dolphin show, and more. Timbuktu officially opened to guests on Friday, January 25, 1980, at an estimated cost of $12.5 million. Timbuktu was modeled after the real city by the same name along the fringes of the Sahara Desert in Africa. Tom Wilkins, architect for Busch Entertainment Corporation, spent a week in the actual Timbuktu studying and photographing buildings. The tower at the entrance from the Nairobi area was based on the design of an ancient temples in Timbuktu. Roughly 7 acres when Timbuktu opened, the area featured several rides including Sandstorm, Crazy Camel, Carousel Caravan, and Bush Pilots, a dolphin show, various gift shops, craftsmen, an arcade, and several midway games. Not ready for opening day, Scorpion would later open. Dolphins of the Deep was the first show in the outdoor theater in the northern side of Timbuktu. It featured 2 bottlenose dolphins, Mitch and Bud, who were able to perform about 30 different learned behaviors. The main dining location when Timbuktu opened was Das Fest House, modeled after a German beer hall. It even included daily shows with a live band playing German polkas and Bavarian-style dressed dancers engaging audience members. How did a German beer hall fit in with a theme in the new area? Thomas Scharbaugh, who was the director of marketing for Busch Entertainment at the time, was quoted in a newspaper article saying in the 15th and 16th centuries, Timbuktu was the crossroads of Africa. In our research, we found that one of the first Europeans to ever reach Timbuktu was a German named Heinrich Barth, who opened a trading outpost in the city. In May, the park opened Scorpion. Scorpion was an Anton Schwarzkopf design and a Silver Arrow model from the company's catalog of roller coasters. It's one of the only 3 of this model ever made, and the only stationary unit produced. The other 2 in existence are transportable models. By the mid-80s, Congo River Rapids opens, and the park alters its name yet again to Busch Gardens, the Dark Continent. Also, Busch Gardens ranked the 3rd most popular tourist attraction in Florida, behind Walt Disney World and SeaWorld, according to the Orlando Sentinel in 1986. By the end of the decade, the monorail trains received an upgraded futuristic look with air conditioning, a welcome change. In September of 1989, Busch Entertainment purchases Harcourt Brace Jovanovich Park Group, which included Boardwalk and Baseball, Cypress Gardens, and the SeaWorld theme park chain. The 90s continued the theme of roller coaster editions with Kumba in 1993. On April 20th, 1993, Busch Gardens held a preview of Kumba for invited media and approximately 200 members of American Coaster Enthusiasts, or ACE. While the roller coaster itself was ready, work continued on a feverish pace around the site, including on structures over portions of the queue. The roller coaster officially opened to guests the following day, in April 21, 1993. A total of 21 radio stations were scheduled to broadcast live from the park, with live satellite feeds sharing video from opening day to stations across the country. Kumba was Busch Gardens' 3rd roller coaster, and the first that was custom designed for the park. It's from Bolliger & Mabillard, a Swiss design firm, and it was the first sit-down roller coaster from the company, following several stand-up and inverted designs. Kumba also boasted several other firsts, including the widest vertical loop at 108 feet in diameter, a triple camelback twist featuring 3 seconds of weightlessness, and a 110-foot diving twisting loop simulating the feeling of a stunt aircraft dive. Kumba means roar in an African language, often cited as Swahili or Kikongo, although a contemporary newspaper said that no linguistic experts contacted could confirm its origin. The track's spine was left hollow, allowing the roaring sound. Meanwhile, in 1995, the park still had the original brewery. The space had been, originally, the reason that the company built the park. However, in late 1995, it was closed as part of a corporate restructuring. At the time, it was Anheuser-Busch's smallest brewer, employing approximately 375 workers. The last of the beer was shipped out of the brewery in early December, and the final handful of workers closed out their final shift at 3 p.m. on December 21, 1995. All of this was to make way for a new experience in the park. By 1996, another roller coaster opened, Montu, designed by Bolliger and Mabillard. Montu is named after the hawk-headed Egyptian war god. When it opened, Montu was listed as the world's tallest and fastest inverted roller coaster. 1997 added the Edge of Africa. Edge of Africa is a series of walk-through habitats covering 15 acres along the southwest corner of the Serengeti Plain. Along with being able to get up close to several African species, the area also has several vantage points overlooking onto the Serengeti Plain. Remember how the brewery closed to make way for something new? In 1999, the park finally opened what they promised, Gwazi. According to the press release, here is how the ride was marketed at its opening. Lurking among the hidden forests of Africa, the mystical Gwazi beast, part lion, part tiger, emerges while caught in a never-ending internal struggle. A battle for supremacy between its two beastly sides is legendary. Now, adventurers from around the globe can experience the power of Gwazi lion and tiger at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Standing 100 feet tall, one of America's newest and largest double wooden roller coasters tantalizes riders to choose a side before catapulting across 1.5 million board feet of southern yellow pine. In an all-too-fast 2.5-minute melodrama, guests who are taken through 6 adrenaline-pumping flyby journeys at a combined speed of 100 miles per hour. Busch Gardens Tampa Bay's reputation as Florida's premier adventure park was bolstered even further in summer of 1999 with the opening of this world-class thrill ride. Gwazi's dueling coasters deliver unrivaled family excitement in a frenzied race to the finish. An African village encompassing Gwazi further immerses guests in the flavor and style that comprises Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Gwazi boasts nearly 7,000 feet of track, which engages both coasters in 6 distinctly harrowing flyby encounters. The Gwazi Lion and Gwazi Tiger trains generate up to 3.5 G forces and speeds of 50 miles per hour for nearly 3 minutes as they careen over 15 towering hills and a dozen hard-angle turns. Gwazi delivers the most action-packed entertainment and nostalgic wooden coaster thrills anywhere in Florida, said Robin Carson, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay's Executive Vice President and General Manager. Gwazi represents the 5th and 6th jewels in Busch Gardens' roller coaster crown, and its lower height restriction allows most members of the family to experience the unique brand of entertainment a double wooden roller coaster offers. The new millennium continued the success of the park with even more new experiences and some old ones. In 2004, a Wild Mouse coaster manufactured by Mack Rides and designed by Werner Stengel, Cheetah Chase, later renamed to Sand Serpent, moved from Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Another new offering, SheiKra, was announced in October of 2004 as the first dive roller coaster in the United States, and only the 3rd in the world. The roller coaster is set in the ancient ruins of an African civilization, which includes various architecture and other theming details representing that storyline. The name SheiKra was inspired by the small bird of prey known as shikra, native to Africa and Asia. Along with the theming and roller coaster itself, the Stanleyville area also received improvements, including the addition of Zambia Smokehouse. Shikra was designed by Bolliger and Mabillard, who also designed Kumba and Montu. Shikra opened in May of 2005. 2006 saw the park change its name again from Busch Gardens Tampa Bay to Busch Gardens Africa. This year also saw Python, the park's first roller coaster, close permanently as part of a project to create Jungala. By 2007, Shikra saw changes as a new floorless trains were installed on the ride. A limited number of presentation pieces were created to celebrate Shikra going floorless. Small sections of the old train's floor were preserved inside of a clear block, with the Busch Gardens and Shikra logos etched onto the front. Jungala opened in 2008, and on November 18, 2008, the combination of InBev and Anheuser-Busch closed, creating Anheuser-Busch InBev, the leading global brewer and one of the top 5 consumer products companies in the world. This shifted the company's strategy, and on October 7, 2009, it was announced that InBev had sold all Busch properties to the Blackstone Group for $2.7 billion. This sale includes all Busch Entertainment properties. One of the deals in the contract was that the Clydesdales of the park be removed, as the breed of horse is associated with the Anheuser-Busch brand. In addition, the Busch Entertainment Company division that owned all of the Worlds of Discovery parks, including Busch Gardens, was renamed SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment, officially marking the finalized purchase in December of 2009. In 2010, the park saw the addition of Sesame Street's Safari of Fun, which includes the new Air Grover coaster, opens to the public, and then the opening of Cheetah Hunt in 2011. Cheetah Hunt was manufactured by Intamin and purchased through Interride LLC, the company's exclusive U.S. supplier. It is a linear synchronous motor launch coaster featuring 3 separate launches. The first launch of the station is 30 miles per hour, the second, leading up to the tower, is 60 miles per hour, and the third, late in the coaster's course, is 40 miles per hour. The roller coaster was originally part of the Cheetah Hunt area when it opened, which included the coaster, Skyride, Cheetah Hunt, Cheetah Snacks, and Cheetah Gifts. In 2013, work began to transform Timbuktu into Pantopia. While much of the architecture remained the same, some buildings were removed or modified, and a vibrant color scheme replaced the overall beige and muted tones. Pantopia officially opened in 2014. In 2014, Busch Gardens took guest experiences to new heights with Falcon's Fury, the first drop tower of its kind in the world. Additionally, with no connecting structures, it was the tallest freestanding drop tower in North America. Falcon's Fury stands at 335 feet and takes riders soaring 60 miles per hour straight down. At the ride's highest point, Busch Gardens has added an element of surprise. Like its bird of prey namesake, riders pivot 90 degrees in midair to face down dive position. An instant later, they'll plunge 60 miles per hour at 3.5 Gs straight down. The attraction faced numerous delays to open several months later than expected. By the next year, Gwazi took its final rides as the park decided to close the dueling wooden roller coaster. Following its closing, rumors swirled as to what might replace Gwazi, or if it might receive new life as a refurbished or retracked roller coaster. By the beginning of April 2015, the large Gwazi sign on the station building had been removed. And just a few months after its closing, the park left the door open as to what might happen to Gwazi in the future. 2016 saw the temporary closure of the Egypt section of the park in preparation for something new, Cobra's Curse. Opening in June of this year, Cobra's Curse by Mack Rides has the most detailed queue and storyline of any of the park's attractions. The queue is also the only one in the park which is predominantly indoors and air-conditioned. The story begins outside the attraction where guests can see the large stone body of the Snake King wrapped away from the lift tower and around the front of the gift shop and queue building to where it has been raised above the entrance. The story of the Snake King goes back 2,000 years when villagers demolished the temple of the powerful being. Today, it's an archaeological site where crews have awoken the Snake King and unleashed his curse again. Those crews are from the fictitious Viper International Survey and Excavation, or VICE. The Vice name and logo can be seen around the Cobra's Curse site, including on the back of some of the trains, and also nearby in the Egypt section of the park in various theming elements. The Egypt area reopened with the opening of this new attraction, as well as the reopening of Montu. 2019 saw the opening of Tigris, Florida's tallest launch coaster by Premier Rides. In 2019, Busch Gardens announced the replacement to the previously closed Gwazi as Iron Gwazi, a steel-tracked roller coaster. The park hired Rocky Mountain Construction, RMC, to retrofit the original wooden structure's layout. It was initially scheduled to open in 2020, but was delayed several times due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues. Iron Gwazi soft opened to pass holders in February of 2022 and the public on March 11th. The refurbished ride was marketed and opened as North America's tallest, steepest, and fastest hybrid roller coaster, featuring a height of 206 feet, a maximum speed of 76 miles per hour, and a track length increase of 567 feet over its predecessor. As the park approached 2024, the decision was made to close the Sand Serpent Wild Mouse coaster in Pantopia for a new offering, Phoenix Rising. The coaster was manufactured by Bolliger & Mabillard and officially opened on July 21, 2024, as the park's 10th roller coaster. Phoenix Rising mimics the sensation of the legendary Phoenix taking flight. The roller coaster reaches a height of 80 feet and has a maximum speed of 44 miles per hour during a 1 minute 26 second duration. The ride was built with the aim of creating a family-friendly roller coaster that would stand out in the park's lineup. Today, the park continues to create quality entertainment for the masses as a premier destination in Florida outside of the tourism corridor of Orlando. With the array of animal experiences and roller coaster offerings, the park is still operating as a gem of the state. With all of this history, we can truly expect great things from the future of this park, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that segment about the history of Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. It's had a long history, and a lot of the original attractions that were kind of built in those first 20 years are still in the park today, including the Serengeti Plain. So I will have to say, I did really enjoy visiting Busch Gardens. I visited last year for the first time. I had a park-to-park annual pass from SeaWorld for a while, and decided to visit Busch Gardens when I had the pass. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great experience, a great place to visit, and it had a lot of really great options and offerings for roller coasters. So naturally, I took that and ran with it. I went with some family. I think in that day, we rode every single roller coaster that was open in the park. At that time, it was before Phoenix Rising opened. It was after Sand Serpent closed, so it was a kind of a weird middle ground space where there was a missing coaster in the lineup. But ever since, I have not been back to ride Phoenix Rising yet. But I do have plans to go in and ride it because it's definitely one amazing attraction that I've heard of. It's not a headliner for the park per se, but it's definitely a really great offering and a really great addition for the current park. Now, when I entered the park, I kind of did this a certain way. This is how I rode every single ride in the park. First of all, we went on a weekday. That's a given. Just like any theme park in the world, the best times to go to parks like this is on a weekday because you're going to be hitting it when the rest of the locals aren't in the park. It was still fairly busy for a park, but because there's so many options, so many rides, people were split out really evenly across the park, and the longest I waited was for Iron Gwazi. And the crazy thing is I could have just waited till later in the day and rode that with a 15-minute wait. So I think I waited almost an hour for that one, but that's the longest wait I had in the entire park. I think the only second to, I believe it was Cheetah Hunt, I think, or Cobra's Curse. One of those two were still fairly long later in the day. I think it's because those really big attractions are at the front of the park. So, but other attractions in the back, like Kumba or Tigris, had little to no wait. So, never mind. It kind of varies. But here's kind of the route that I took. So I decided to go around the park. I go to the back first, and then come back to Africa and Egypt, and then end back up at the front of the park. Kind of do a left, a clockwise route around the park, and it seemed to work in my favor. So I don't know if you have a better kind of strategy to exploring Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, but I do believe that this is a really great place to kind of follow that clockwise fashion strategy to get on some of the big attractions. So I started at Iron Gwazi. Yes, it's the first raid we went to. We got there at like 11 a.m. on the day we were here, so it was fine. I did really enjoy a lot of the entrance space. The Morocco section of the park was very interesting. Lots of great details and theming. I really enjoyed a lot of that area. It felt very much like a grand entrance to a theme park, and that's what I like, because I have qualms about SeaWorld Orlando, but we'll get to that episode when we get there. Regardless, we kind of just started at Iron Gwazi and worked our way around the park. We went through the bird gardens, which I did not realize that the bird gardens was the original area of the park. I mean, it definitely felt older, and it felt like it was less connected to the rest of the park, so I guess that makes sense. But the fact that Iron Gwazi used to be the factory of the park, fantastic. I've learned so much, and I can't wait to go back and look around for those things. And as we continued around, we went through the Sesame Street Safari of Fun, which was actually pretty fun, and went around to Stanleyville. This is where we boarded the train, I believe, and then we rode in a full circle of the park from the train. I love a good train. If you know anything about me, is that I like trains, and I will ride the train no matter where I'm at. So naturally, I definitely rode the train in this park, and I loved it. It was a really great experience. I did not get off the train until we got back to the train station. I know that they have a second train station. I definitely did not get off there. So we definitely just kept riding and went through the Serengeti Plain and around through Kumba and Congo and Jungala, and it was just a great place. I loved it. So I really enjoyed that attraction because it's just a great attraction that anyone can ride. And I love a good ride that, anyone can ride. It's fun to be a part of that experience. And so as we continued around, I think we did SheiKra next. I really enjoyed SheiKra. SheiKra was fun. I've been on dive coasters before, and SheiKra was phenomenal, actually. I was riding that one as a single rider, so I was able to do the single rider queue and kind of squished in the middle of another group of people. But regardless, it was still not very long a wait for everything here in this park because I did a lot of single riders for the lines. Now, that means that it may not be as quick for many of you, but I noticed that almost all of these attractions also had no queue, so it really didn't matter that I was a single rider. I was just kind of squished into other parties that was like two parties and, behind me. It really wasn't that big a deal. So I did SheiKra, and then we wanted to do the Stanley Falls Flume. Of course, now that this has been permanently closed, but it was an original log flume ride here, and it's been permanently closed now officially. But regardless of that, we wanted to ride it. It was closed that day, and after learning more about the rides in this park, it seems that was a common thing that happened a lot. So it was more of a good occurrence if you were able to find it open during the day. It was rarer to find it open, so that's curious. We rode Tigress next. Now, I'm not a fan of a Premier Rides attraction like this. I'm not a fan of rides like Tigress. This is not my favorite. Almost all of the SeaWorld parks have some version of this ride nowadays. SeaWorld San Diego has one very similar. So these are common now, and they're in quite a few theme parks, and I'm not a super fan of this type of coaster. I don't like the zoom back and forth type thing. I think what's similar to this one in SeaWorld Orlando is probably Icebreaker. I know it's a Premier Rides coaster as well. It feels very similar to that, and it does go back and forth through the station not really through the station, but in a way, off the side. This one's a very unique one. But Tigress, for me, was, a one-and-done type coaster. I'm not super interested in doing it again. But it was interesting, and nonetheless, it was something different. As we continued, we went through Jungala, which, if you're not familiar with what Jungala is like the primate exhibit. So this is where a lot of the gorillas and monkeys and different types of primates are held and kept. So this was pretty interesting in that way. There's also an area called Wild Oasis that connects to this, and then you can see the Congo River Rapids nearby here. Now, Congo River Rapids is one of those older rides that's here, but it's still just your famous river rapids ride, which we love to see in parks. And it apparently gets you soaking wet, so there's that. But it also goes through Congo, and then Kumba kind of intertwines around it. Now, Kumba was open when I was there, and I visited, so I enjoyed it. Kumba was great. It was a little bit rougher, because it is one of the older attractions in the park, but it was still great nonetheless. I enjoyed Kumba a lot. I love that, like, trademark twist that it goes so close to the ground type thing. It was such a neat, fun area. I've got lots of fun pictures in front of that because they actually let you cross right over next to it, so that's great. But I did like Kumba. Kumba was really good. As we moved on into here, we went into the area known as Pantopia. And before this podcast, I was wondering, what is Pantopia supposed to be? There is no such place as Pantopia. So I was like, why do they call it this? And then when I learned that it was built based on Timbuktu, an actual place on the edge of Africa, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So this is actually where we got lunch on the day that I visited the park. We got like a pizza and split it, like a flatbread, split it with my family in this area of the park. And it was fine. I just honestly think that the food served at SeaWorld / Busch Gardens is just fine. I'm not a super fan of their food because it's so expensive. If I could get a kids meal for half the price and half the quantity given, I would get kids meals all the time. But they don't really offer kids meals at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens. So yeah, I'm not a super fan of the food at these parks. If anything, it's very much theme park food. And sometimes you can find some decent, interesting options, but that's pretty rare. So, you get what you get, and you just kind of have to figure it out. But we loved that nonetheless. It was pretty good pizza. And then we walked around and just kind of explored Pantopia and went into the different areas around here. We went into the Dragons restaurant there. That's kind of like it used to be the beer garden, which I talked about that in the history portion. So, and we start to see, as we get closer there, we start to see the animals over in the Serengeti Plain, because you can see the animal interactions and tours area right next to Serengeti Flyer, and you start to see cheetah hunt on the train, and you're starting to see some of the animals. So those famous zoo animals that you know about when it comes to Busch Gardens, and specifically in Tampa Bay, because if you go to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, they don't have giraffes. So this is cool. They don't have many animals, actually. They have a few, but not very many. But this area is pretty cool nonetheless, because you're kind of walking alongside the train, which is alongside the safari. And so there's a lot of fun things to look at. There's some great animal facilities along the sides here where you can kind of see some things that you didn't know about. And you can kind of go into Nairobi in the edge of Africa. This area kind of just fits together in a certain way. But then you can also see more gorilla habitats over here in Nairobi. I know I mentioned that Jungala has more gorilla, but that's not gorilla. That is more of a monkey, like a primate area, while Nairobi is gorillas. So apologize for my misstatement there. I've only been to this park twice, technically. I did do a park tour of the park, and we did get to go on the safari vehicles and drive around. We got to meet a rhino, which was so fun. But that's kind of what happened there. So yeah, it was pretty interesting nonetheless. We did a pretty good tour of this park. We also got to go up into the restaurant here as we got closer to Cobra's Curse and the Sky Ride and Cheetah Hunt. So in Egypt, there's a restaurant here. It's kind of themed. It looks kind of strange. It is called, it's called Oasis Pizza and Treetop Kitchen. and it used to be known as the original Swiss restaurant. So I mentioned the Swiss restaurant in the episode, and that is a famous like early building in the park, and it's still here. It's just not Swiss themed anymore. It's Oasis Pizza and Treetop Kitchen, which is a table service dining location. So, you get what you get. But we did go in here and got to explore it and talk a little bit about the restaurant, so that was pretty fun. But regardless, in my visit here, I did get to enjoy Cheetah Hunt. I loved Cheetah Hunt. Cheetah Hunt was so much fun. And if you're here for fun coasters, Cheetah Hunt is the one to ride. I did not get to do the sky ride, so that's what I got to do next time. Because they just when I visited, this is when they first started charging for the sky ride. So I said no. I just said no, I'm good. And that's kind of what happened there. Oops. But we went on over into Egypt, and I did first in Montu. I loved Montu. Montu was actually extremely fun and very painless. Typically, these type of roller coasters are pretty painful to ride, but this one was pretty painless, so I was excited. The loops were very fun on this one, so I definitely recommend riding Montu if you're ever here. Also, Montu had little to no wait, which was so nice. Literally, I walked straight to the station, which was so handy. And then finally, Cobra's Curse. Now, this one, I was absolutely kind of blown away at the level of detail in the queue, the storytelling in the queue. I had not seen anything like this in Busch Gardens, and I was kind of surprised because even some of the bigger coasters around the park really had little to no theming, but Cobra's Curse had a story. And if you don't know, I am a super huge fan of Egyptian mythology. And so seeing Cobra's Curse being kind of like a introduction to that for a lot of people was very nice. Very fun to see some Egyptian lore kind of being dropped. That was cool to see. So this attraction, I really loved it, though. The actual ride itself was really fun. It did encounter a couple delays while we were there, but regardless, it still did the job, and I still got to ride it. So that was kind of the conclusion of our day at Busch Gardens. I mean, realistically, this park is fairly large. It's going to be pretty hard for anyone to get through the whole park in one day, but fortunately, I was able to do it. And we also got to see a lot of the animal exhibits. So regardless of how that went, I still think I got a pretty good value out of my time spent at Busch Gardens. So I recommend that you just kind of follow that same path. That way, once you're back to the front of the park, you're kind of just done because you've already done the full circle of the park. You've done Stanleyville, Jungala, Congo, Pantopia, and you're right back where you started. It's really fun. And I will say this park has a lot to do for different types of families, because if you're here for more of a kids ride type thing where you've got some small children, Sesame Street Safari of Fun is a great place to visit. You can visit all of the animal exhibits. You can ride the train. You can do the different sky ride. You can do the Congo River Rapids. You could do a few different rides here and there, and you can go into different specialty show venues around here as well, because we went to a ice show at the front of the park. Kind of in the Morocco area, the Nairobi in Morocco. It's kind of like on the edge of that. We went into this theater and we seen this ice show that's offered year round, and it was honestly pretty good. I love a good show. Ice shows are fun. They're not my favorite type of show in the world, but we still enjoyed it. We definitely left and go, wow, that was pretty good. And there's a lot of different venues around the park. There's a concert venue over in Stanleyville that they do some bigger concerts in. There's one in Pantopia. So there's lots of options here. There's lots of things the park can do, and they do a lot of seasonal offerings in the park. They're known for Busch Gardens Christmas Town, I think is what it's called, or Christmas Village. And that's fun. I love that because I know SeaWorld Orlando does a really good Christmas celebration. And yeah, I assume Busch Gardens does a very similar one. I would like to try to get down here maybe this year and see the Christmas offering. They also have Hallow Scream here, which is their Halloween event. This is kind of where Hallow Scream started, was some of the Busch Gardens locations. And it's fascinating to kind of learn more about the origins of that and kind of where it goes from there. But this park is still really awesome. I really enjoyed my visit here, and I can't wait to truly go back and experience more of what I missed and try some other things, maybe try some different foods, look for some more merchandise. I will say Busch Gardens had an exceptional line of merchandise available when we were visiting. There were so many great things that you can purchase in this park if you're looking for like a souvenir to take home. And I really enjoyed my time visiting Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. So I highly recommend you visit the park. It's still really a great place, and it has a lot of really great options for you to see some animals up close and personal. There's lots of different upcharge attractions to where you can get onto the Serengeti Plain. You can view by train or skyride, train for free, skyride for a cost, but it's still really cool nonetheless. And there's lots and lots and lots of ways to see different animals around the park. So you could come here and never ride a single ride, but still get a full experience. And that's the landmark of a good park, and also a good zoo in this case. But regardless, I really love Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. I find it very interesting. I will say, now that I've been to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, I do enjoy Busch Gardens Williamsburg quite a bit more than this park, but Tampa Bay still has a really great park. There's still a lot of really great options here and really great theming. I think it's just what sucks about this area is that it's hot. This is heat central. You think Orlando's bad, Tampa Bay is just as hot. So you have to deal with the heat. I've been in Florida long enough now to know that you have to deal with the heat sometimes, and you just have to get over it. But regardless, I really enjoyed this park. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think we're nearing the end of it. And so I can't wait to talk to you on the next episode. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I have an idea of speaking about just moving on to the next episode, but I also could just take a week off and just chat about theme parks in general. So we're going to talk about it. We'll figure it out. And I'll just keep an eye out on all the social channels for kind of what's coming up next in the Carousel of Theme Parks podcast, like universe. So just follow us on all our different social medias. I have Instagram, Facebook page. I have a X account. I have a YouTube account where you can listen to these episodes. I'm not uploading currently any other videos and such, but I am uploading other content on Instagram and Facebook. So if you're on those platforms, definitely find me and look for me and try to find these episodes and these other experiences, because I know you'll enjoy it when you find it. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. And then I have just a little credit part right after this, and then I'll see you the next time. Thanks for watching, and thanks for experiencing Zack Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. Thank you again for listening to Zack Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. Now, the history portions of this episode were brought to you through sources from bgthistory.com and several other locations around the internet. This specific episode came a lot of information from Busch Gardens Tampa History or bgthistory.com. So if you're interested in looking up more about individual attractions or themes or topics, you can find all of that information on bgthistory.com. There's also some additional information available on some various other websites, but you can find them all on the show notes for this episode. So if you're interested in looking up more about Busch Gardens Tampa, then I highly recommend you check out some of the sources that I've linked. I also used some Wikipedia articles to kind of complete some of the missing pieces because they had connections, and then I cross-referenced with their connections to find where they got their information, and it was from credible resources like newspapers and news articles. So I really enjoyed the experience of researching the history for this episode, so you can check out all of the individual sources in the show notes for this episode. Thanks again, and we will see you in the next one.